We're here with Rabbi Leib Tropper with Shoel and Meshiv Questions and Answers. Rabbi Leib, some people say there are millions, well, maybe not millions, maybe just a lot of people, and in the context of that, that's exactly what we're talking about, exaggeration. Is exaggerating something which a lot of people do have any connection in the realm of actual lying?
What a loaded question. That's really... It is a big chiddush. To answer that question, I really have to do more research to properly answer that question. I will do the research for that question to discuss it again. But I just want to share with you something fascinating. That the Chazon Ish Zatzal in the Emunah B'Tochen does call that sheker. Let me read to you what he says. I trust if you hear what he says. You can interpret it differently than I do, but it's fine. I'm just going to read you what the words are.
As long as we don't exaggerate.
We should establish badibur b'midas ha'emes ha'metukana, which is correct. B'midas ha'sheker, we should stay away from ha'mukukala. Actually, the Chazon Ish in the Pe'er Hador he says, midvar sheker tirchak. You shouldn't even say the word sheker. Midvar sheker, from saying the word sheker, tirchak. Chazon Ish would say it's not emes. He never would say sheker. He would say, he doesn't want to talk about the word sheker. The Orchas Tzadikim says that a person should be merachek, to distance himself from somebody who's a doiver sheker. Midvar sheker tirchak. Now, let's play on the word is midoiver sheker tirchak. Stay away from people who speak untruth. Okay? Ki Chazal hechamiru b'zemoid. Chazal b'machmer. That's number one. First thing is the Torah says it's very serious. The kikula motzi ma'od, and the destructive and negative impact it could have is terrible. And the consequences of what you lose doing that is really awesome. Changing the word from the truth of what is being spoken about. B'shem sheker yikare. It's called a lie. Shinui. You're not saying altering fact. Just a little shini, a little change. The gnus hasheker. The gnus that we denigrate and we put away. We chastise people who talk sheker lies. It's not It's not because the benefit that comes through deceiving somebody through deception. That's not what the sin of lying is, because you're hurting other people. When he fools his friend. Ela af hashinui, even if it's a small difference of the truth, it does not cause anybody any kind of loss at all. When you talk just now, you said, I once saw Rabbi Yitzchak Kutner down the street. You didn't see him. You heard about that he was there. You heard that he went to a certain place. I once heard from Adam Gadol that Rabbi Chafetz Chaim. You didn't hear it from Gadol. You read it in the book. These Dvarim, even that kind of a thing, it's not necessarily exaggeration, actually. It's just changing mabakach, but it doesn't have any consequences. Who does it hurt when you say, I saw Rav Hutton in the street, or I spoke to somebody when you heard secondhand from somebody? But those things are called Dvoshem mabakach, b'shem sheker yuchune. They're called lying. Ubeklal oban ha-shekerhu. So in other words, we don't have an answer on the exaggeration question, but we do have an answer, which perhaps we could stretch to exaggeration, that anything that you say it's altering facts. It doesn't matter if it's causing a loss for anyone. Dvarim shel mabakach. Nonsense. Things that are just talking about, for lunch I had an apple. You didn't have, you had a pear. It's fascinating and it's terrifying in a sense to think of how much we have to train ourselves to speak truth. And he says, they were very machmer on these things. As I just mentioned, midvar sheker tichak. Stay away from the doiver shekers, people who say lies who cannot stick to the truth. Stay away from them. Midoiver sheker. And on the other hand, the Chazon Ish uses the word midvar sheker tichak to tell us, don't use the word sheker itself. What should be substituted by saying, you said before, you say, it's not true. It's not saying it's not emes. But to say it's a sheker Midvar sheker tirchak. The word sheker is such a nasty word, such an obscene word. We don't realize how obscene it is. We know that we have in our language obscene words, and we could describe the same thing in a non-obscene way, a non-obscene verbiage. So we choose a non-obscene way. Similarly, when you say something is a sheker, you don't say the word sheker itself. You say not emes. We learn out the concept of the halacha of dvar sheker tirchak. But it tries to tell us that at one point. But to discuss when you're talking with somebody else, you'll say it wasn't true. Not is a sheker. I mean, sheker has a lot of parts to it, and things that are complex, and we have to discuss it more, I guess, and learn it more. But we have to be machmir, as they said, the chazal chmiru. We have to find out what are those chumras that we have to avoid being nichshel in terms of saying the truth.
Thank you, Rabbi. The next topic that we wanted to address today in terms of Shoel and Meshiv questions and answers that a lot of people have questions about pertains to the mitzvah of Kibud Av Veh Eim, of honoring one's parents. And there are a lot of elements to that. Can you help us understand what the essence of that particular mitzvah is of Kibud Av Veh Eim, and what particularly we have to be aware of, and specific things that we can do, are allowed to do, and things that we're not allowed to do that we may actually think are permitted?
That's a very important question. Let's go to the extreme first of what you can do. I heard recently somebody told me over from a Rosh Yeshiva who was a Talmid Chacham. I didn't hear it directly, so I cannot say for sure, but I heard it from Rosh Yeshiva. It's a very chosh Rosh Yeshiva in New York. Talmid Chacham, I know him. And he said that Kibud is not really honoring. It's doing things for your parent. That's a misnomer and a mistake, and I think that person is wrong. Absolutely wrong. And then he said that Moira, fearing a parent, is more like honoring than fear. That's also wrong. And I'll explain by going to the most severe case in the Gemara. The one Kedushin talks about Yesh Machela Oviv Pisyoni. There can be a person who gives his father fat chicken, fat meat, fat duck, very good, and he's Neichel Gehenim. He goes into Gehenim. Yesh Shetochene Berechayim. He makes his father grind wheat, and he goes Neichel Elam Haba. He goes to Elam Haba. Because it depends how you give it to your father. Pa, Dad, Abba, you want some food? Here's some food, like Esav did. And Chazal say Esav was Machabed, his father. Here's the food. Abba, Tati, chicken here. Take it. The fork, take it. It's not. They're covered, not given in a respectful way. Just put the plate and you stick the knife into the fork. I mean, then you stick the fork into the chicken. You stick it up. It's not a covered way. See, that's Neichel Gehenim. And then a person can say, Dad, we have to go together. Abba, we have to go together to do something outside. I need you to hold the door open while I carry in something for you. You think you could help me? Was it too difficult? So Yesh Matchine Berechayim, you ask him to go work for you, do something, and you Neichel Elam Haba on the way you speak. The Chai Adam Paskins Halacha Lamaisa. This is fantastic. I'm not sure everybody agrees with the Chai Adam. This is one of the proofs against that particular Rav in New York. Chai Adam Paskins in Mefurish in Hilchos Kibud Av that a person must have in machshava hold his father very dear and precious. And if he doesn't, he's not Mekayim Kibud Av. And the lumdus, the deeper part of that understanding is because if you do something for your father without feeling that, it's like Yesh Machal Adam Pisyoni V'Nechel Gehenim. If you don't really believe your father is something he deserves honor and respect, and you just give him, so you do something for him, like the Gemara it says, what's called Kibud? Machil, you give him food. Mashke, you give him to drink. You gave him the food, but Yesh Machal Adam, without having the covet in your mind of thinking of him as a precious person in your life, the Chai Adam says that's part of the mitzvah of Kibud Av. Honoring your father has to come from a source, not just from an action. Moira, Ezu Moira, you don't sit in his place, not in his chair, but you don't sit in his place. You don't contradict his words. That created a very big issue about not contradicting his words for the Makne and other places, Chuvas Oil Moshe from Zweig, he has in Chelik Beis a whole Chuva. How do we those coexist? I mean, because a person says, do not contradict your father. So what does that mean? If he's wrong, you don't contradict him. Even if he's wrong, it sounds in the Gemara like contradict him. In a sense, everything you don't do, everything. We'll see in the Gemara. The Gemara says, if your father tells you, he has no benefit from it. If your father asks you to go and run around the corner 30 times just because he wants to see you do that, no benefit from it. So there's no din of Kibud Av Veh Eim on that. It's only if your father has, even for a punishment, if he tells you to run around the block 30 times, you're not mechuyev to. So, however, the many poskim, the Netziv and the Hamakne and the Oil Moshe from Zweig asked the Kasha, why is that not contradicting his words? If you don't do it, if you defy that command, then you are contradicting his words. And it's a big arichas. I don't want to go into the arichas of the Achronim, how they answer it in different ways. And one of them remains by Tzarechiyun, actually. But not contradicting his words, Memoira, the feet comes from awe. You're in awe over your father, and you feel that this fear of your father is an awe kind of fear. It's not just general fear that he's going to hit you, but a feeling of fear. I just fear him. Out of what? Out of anything. It could be most proper would be the awe that you have for him. There's a Chuas Marik. It's famous. It's Ramah brings it down. Hilchas Kibud Av Veh Eim. But if your father tells you not to marry someone that he doesn't like, you're not mechuyev to listen to him. Your father or your mother suggests you shouldn't marry someone. There's no chiyuv of Kibud Av under the banner of Kibud Av Veh Eim to listen to him or her. That also would be in the same question. Why isn't that contradicting their words? But that's the halacha. However, there's a caveat to that halacha, and it's very, very important. Torah Tamima asked the Kasha by all the others when Avram told Eliezer not to marry this one, not to marry that one. Yitzchak told Yaakov not to marry this one or that one from this place and that place. How would they tell them that if there's no din of Kibud Av Veh Eim? And also the Meshech Chochmah asked this Kasha on the Parsha. The Meshech Chochmah actually says that the reason why they had to have a shvuah, Avram made Yitzchak swear, because as Kibud Av Veh Eim he wouldn't be mechuyev to listen to him. He's only mechuyev to listen to him because he made a shvuah, a new din. He's only mechuyev al shvuah, not because of the fact that he's halacha of Kibud Av Veh Eim. Torah Tamim has another. The halacha says we paskin, and Siv paskins that way, and Torah Tamim I think paskins that way also. That if it's a shidduch that causes grave bizyonis to the family, I'm not sure if certain people have different reactions. I'm not saying everybody does. Interracial shidduch or something like that, some people would feel very, very uncomfortable in the family. Such people are human. They have, or if it's something like somebody who's totally dresses inappropriately and causes bizyonis for the family, a father has a right, a mother has a right to say, I do not like the shidduch, and then it falls under the category of either Kibud Av Veh Eim or la yishtaris devarav. You cannot contradict your father. Mm-hmm. So that's just a kind of a beginning and entrance, entree to that concept.